Because on these national issues that are very pressing this time around, we have Mr. Silvanus Barrister, let me just correct myself, Barrister Silvanus Okpe and Mr. Peggy Shandy.
Thank you for having me.
Very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, now, Mr. Peggy, we are going to start with you. You know, of course, Ihodia have presented his case before the court. And from what we have gathered, the respondents, which are the APC, Uzodinma, and INEC, has not yet responded to this request of his. How do you think this whole thing is going to play out?
Well, thank you very much. Emeka Ihedioha has really done the right thing. He has the constitutional right to approach the Supreme Court, which is the highest judicial authority in the land, and approaching the Supreme Court to review the judgment is also very correct. As a matter of fact, I'm not a lawyer, but you know, the Supreme Court, when it passes judgment, it gives a verdict. You know, it's not very usual to revisit its judgment. But I want to make it very clear that the Constitution actually has empowered the Supreme Court, you know, when it has erred, especially when the facts and figures somehow being very clear that they have made a mistake. They can actually review it. Yes. So no other input except for the mistake they have found that they did. And so I think it has become very, very obvious that the supporters of Emeka Ihedioha have been able to release those mistakes to the press, to the public, and which is why, of course, they have been able to come back to the Supreme Court. And tomorrow is the D-Day to listen to the review.
Okay, maybe you didn't get me right. You know, the question is, they've been accused, and they've not responded to it.
Which party?
Uzodinma
They
has
have
not
responded.
responded.
They have responded.
What we have gathered from the press is that they've not filed any response.
They have filed.
To
They have filed.
Okay. So what do you think of that?
You know, even Supreme Court itself, by one of its eminent justices, Justice Nikki Toby, in the case of Adegoke Motors versus Desanya, made it clear that the Supreme Court can make mistakes. When he said, the Supreme Court is not final because it is infallible. Rather, it is infallible because it is final. Which means that Supreme Court is final doesn't mean it doesn't make mistake. But it doesn't make mistake because it is final. And for Supreme Court itself to set a date for the hearing of this review, it means it's within their constitutional purview to do so.
That's correct.
And in law, there are instances when the Supreme Court can actually review its earlier decision. There are rare circumstances, but they can only arise when a particular judgment was reached per incuriam. What we mean by per incuriam in law is when it is reached through a fraudulent manner, when it was secured through a fraudulent manner, and the Supreme Court had to judge based on that fact before them. You know, the Supreme Court was not there at the election. Their judgment is based on the evidence you provided before them. So if they discover that the evidence upon which their judgment was based was fraudulent, what they do is to reverse it in the interest of justice. So, but then, Hope Uzodinma of the All Progressive Congress, the lawyers through Dodo-san, they have filed a counterclaim urging the Supreme Court not to listen to Emeka Ihedioha's claims on the grounds that the time limit for hearing of such electoral matters has elapsed. They asked the Supreme Court to divest itself of the jurisdiction to hear this matter. That is why tomorrow there will be 2 stages of the judgment.
Yeah.
One, pre-election, preliminary objection raised by Opus of the mass people, challenging the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to hear such matter. That if the case scales through that preliminary objection, yes, then we go into the substance of the matter. But we are hoping that whatever decision is reached at the Apex Court tomorrow, it will be able to, assuage the grievances of all parties.
So what if the case does not scale through? What happens?
On the account of jurisdiction?
Yes.
The Supreme Court, they are empowered by law, by the order of their court. If they see that case they don't have jurisdiction, then they will throw the case out for lacking jurisdiction to hear it. But if they hear it, whatever they have ruled, I believe, I pray and hope that it will be able to assuage the grievances of Emeka Ihedioha of the PDP and his supporters, the grievances of Opus Odima of the APC and his supporters, for stability and development of that state. We cannot continue in these squabbles, in this instability, in these struggles. Let us know that it is one state, and everything they are doing, you cannot govern a state in tatters, a state reduced to cinders. You govern a state where there is law and unity.
Exactly.
Okay, let me just quickly provide certain details here.
Okay.
Very important, yes, because the gentleman here seems to be very, very averse with the legal maxims, and he's giving us the functus officio and all the quinox, and gimox, the dates, and cactus code, all that. But permit me to just provide a bit of this details here. Imo comprises of 27 local governments and 305 electoral wards, and the polling units 3,523. What happened in the case of the Imo problem is that 252 polling units were cancelled. According to them, say violence. Then they excluded another set of results from 388 polling units. Now, if you add 252 to 388, you are having a sum of about over 640 polling units that were omitted out of 3,523. The first next to Emeka Ihedioha scored 190,364 votes with the Action Alliance. Ifeanyi of Abga, yes, for 100 and scored 114,676. In the distant fourth was Hope Uzodimma, who scored 96,458. Owing to this, from the distant fourth, the Supreme Court goes ahead and then announces him as governor. I mean, let's look at those details very well.
Well, the Bible said that the first shall be the last, and the last shall later be the first. Maybe it is the biblical injunction that.
Is that applicable in politics too?
No,
because
let me.
cannot bring Bible into politics,
it's
because
true,
they say Bible is politics
true.
is a dirty game. So,
but let me say that what you are proposing here, you are making us judges of the Supreme Court. Well, this case is before a court of competent jurisdiction, and discussing it on air amounts to sub judice in law. It's a contempt of court and is punishable. So I advise that we talk about the preliminary issues. Let us not dabble into the major case before the justices of the Supreme Court. Let us allow them to come up with their decision tomorrow. And if we have grievances, if we disagree with their positions, we can now discuss it as a matter of analysis.
Okay, moving on. Zamfara is also going to court for the third time. What do you think? What do you make of it, of this whole thing? Do you think this time around the Apex Court is going to give them the verdict like in their favor, or
this is desperation taken too far. In fact, I'm seeing the moves by ADO as needless. Even though instances abound where Supreme Court, even in the US, go back to their previous cases to review it on peculiar circumstances. But I think if a politician wants to win an election, wants to govern a peaceful state, the first thing he must submit himself to in a democratic setting is the judgment of court. And he must bear it in mind that this court judgment will not always favor you. That is it, if you want to be a good politician. This is where I'm giving APC the maturity. In the judgment of the Supreme Court, in the case of Bayelsa State, APC accepted the verdict. The only place the national chairman of the APC tried to challenge the judgment is the consequential order by the Supreme Court, which directed INEC to give certificate of order, INEC to give certificate of return to the second highest winner, the runner-up, with the geographical or constitutional spread.
Yeah.
That was where Adams Oshomole disagreed with the judgment of the court. But PDP from distant second, APC scored 400 and something and 100 and something. And the APC accepted the verdict, only challenging PDP's candidate on the grounds that he did not get the constitutional spread.
And you think they will not go to court in the nearest
going to court is this thing is just, to me, is an abuse of court process. If Supreme Court has laid, I was taught in law that the highest court of arbiter is the Supreme Court. But there are instances in the Supreme Court, imagine that all the cases in the Supreme Court, everybody keep going back there. When will there be time to determine other barrage of cases that are in the Supreme Court now waiting for adjudication? There are many cases. It's not only politics we have in Nigeria. Many persons are there, land issues, criminal cases, civil matters. If we continue like this, everybody continue disagreeing with the highest court, this is creating a bad precedent for the country. And I urge the Supreme Court to do something quickly to extricate itself from the grips of our politicians, of our desperate leaders who are not dissatisfied with the decision of a court in a democratic setting.
Are we talking about the Zamfara going to court for the third time?
It's also an abuse of court process. The Zamfara case is clear that there was no valid primaries. Just the mistake people are making in this Bayelsa case. Bayelsa case is a pre-election matter. A pre-election matter, you don't order for a rerun. Pre-election matter was before the election. So if you are determining on pre-election matter, you don't talk about election.
So what grounds exactly are they taking? Are they going to court? They've gone there for the first time.
Maybe for review. Maybe for review. They are wasting time. They are wasting is a frivolous case coming before the court to waste the precious time of the Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court must do something quickly to discourage our leaders from stampeding the courts with already decided cases.
Okay, so the term meddlesome interloper is a term is a legal term, and it also is not just happening, except that the courts themselves are creating the lacuna. I don't know. So can you just throw a little bit light, on why some of these things, I've grown up in Nigeria for some time, and I've never seen a review, chanting as a mantra all over the streets of the country like it is in recent times.
Let me say that.
So who are the people really causing this?
They are our lawyers. They are our lawyers. When we had lawyers who are professionals, who do their job diligently with integrity, if you meet them with some cases, they first advise you that you don't have to go through with this case. Like Obasanjo made an example in his book, My Watch, when he was a military commandant in Ibadan or something, and he was accused, the wife was accused of cutting away with the food of students in Ibadan, the wife of Obasanjo. Then Obasanjo wanted to sue for libel. It was Chief F.R.A. Williams. Chief F.R.A. Williams led the Nigerian Bar Association for about 10 years, and he had integrity. He told Obasanjo to forget the matter. But now, how many lawyers will tell a client to be as big as that to forget the matter? They want to collect money from you. And they have continued to abuse the legal process. Imagine Kanu Agabi, a former Nigerian Bar Association president, leading the team. He had of 30 lawyers, but he had and other lawyers going to court. And this is not healthy for our democracy. I see the violence in Bayelsa. And the Supreme Court it's just that our politicians have refused to abide by the norms created by our constitution in election matters. If not, it is not the powers of the Supreme Court to elect a leader for us. But what we are seeing is superiority of the law over the choice of the people. When the people are finished voting, the Supreme Court will come and impose an unpopular candidate or not. Not imposing. The Supreme Court judgments, if you check it very well, are always grounded in law. Imagine somebody coming to contest election, you don't have certificates. And there was a screening committee of the APC. Where we are there.
Mr. Peggy, please, moving forward, because we know we don't have enough time, like moving forward, what do you think tomorrow's reviewer process, everything is going to turn out?
I think the review, the Supreme Court will give them fair hearing, and I am urging all parties. I know the Supreme Court will do the right thing. The Supreme Court has over time reinstated its independence, its integrity, and will repose confidence in them. We will abide by their decision tomorrow, and we are sure that whatever decision they take will be in the interest of democracy, in the interest of due process, in the interest of the rule of law. And I want them to bear it in mind, to hearken to the advice of Nicky Toby. Nicky Toby once advised, he was a justice of Supreme Court, and he advised judges to try as much as possible to extricate themselves from the grips of politicians. Politics and the judicial profession, they cannot align. They cannot align. A judge does things without bias. A judge adjudicates case. He doesn't have interest. Without bias, he is not partial. But a politician is partial and is biased. So two of them cannot come together. The justices must always determine cases without fear nor favor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, what's your take on that? What do you think the whole thing is going to
I feel that
turn out tomorrow?
The Hope Uzodinma has already been sworn in as the executive governor of Imo State. And so if the Supreme Court decides to give back to him, there is a confusion in the whole judicial process. So I do not accept. Let the Supreme Court just go ahead and just allow Hope Uzodinma continue to stay there as governor.
So are you advising that? Are you advising that APC should just forget about the case of Zamfara?
What I'm saying is that
because definitely it's APCs that are taking the case.
If a case has reached a particular court, I don't have the right to advise any parties or say what the outcome will be. My own advice will be for them to follow due process. What I'm saying is that Supreme Court should do what is needful to continue attracting the confidence of the masses. Let them always adjudicate disputes that will give confidence to people. Let us believe in the legal process. The judiciary is the last hope of the common man. And if it is being eroded in this Nigeria where we don't have leaders, if we lose the court as a people, there will be problem. We'll be hopeless.
Okay. Your final word, please, Mr. Peggy.
No, there shouldn't be confusion. I told you before, I'm not a lawyer. But the confusion that is coming up and down, let the Supreme Court understand what they're doing so that they don't allow us to become meddlesome interlopers. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. That is how much we can take on Press Talk today. Don't forget to check us out on our social media handles where you can watch more of our programs. Thank you. Till tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye.